Welcome again to Math 800 Pre-Algebra. Today we are doing section 4.5, Problem Solving, Mixed Numbers, and Estimating. Our objectives: 1. To identify mixed numbers and graph them on a number line. 2. To rewrite mixed numbers as improper fractions or the other way around. 3. To estimate the answer and multiply or divide mixed numbers. 4. To estimate the answer and add or subtract mixed numbers. And 5. To solve application problems containing mixed numbers. When a fraction and a whole number are written together, the result is a mixed number. 3 1/2 represents 3 plus a half. Mixed numbers are not fractions. When the directions in my math lab tell you to write the answer as a fraction, they will not accept a mixed number. It is a different kind of number. Mixed numbers, however, are equal to improper fractions, so we'll show that 3 1/2 is equal to the improper fraction 7/2. 3 1/2 means you have 3 wholes, 1, 2, 3 whole pieces, and then half. Notice that the 3 whole pieces are the same size, plus this extra one is also the same size. They're all the same size. They're also all divided in halves. 3 of them are shaded in completely, and the fourth one, only half of it is shaded. In a mixed number, we have 1, 2, 3 1/2. 3 wholes and a half. As an improper fraction, the denominator is still 2 because 1 whole only has 2 pieces, but now we look at how many are shaded in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces are shaded in. Therefore, this diagram represents the improper fraction 7/2. 7 are shaded, but a single whole only has 2 pieces. The important relationship here to know is that 3 1/2 is an addition, 3 plus a half. This is not a multiplication. This is an addition. Now we will find these mixed numbers on a number line. Our number line has the integers indicated, 1, 2, 3, 4, and -1, -2, -3, -4. And in this case, they've put a dash mark at the halfway point in between each integer. That is because our denominator was a half. If our denominator was fourths, they'd put dash marks, they'd put 4 spaces here. So 1 here, 1 there, 1 there. If it was tenths, they'd have 10 spaces here. We want 3 1/2, so we're going to have 3 wholes plus an additional half. Negative 3 1/2 is just a negative number. It's the same fraction, only on the opposite side of 0. So negative 3 1/2 is -1, -2, -3 plus an extra 1/2. Again, you can write these as their improper fractions. This little dash is 1/2. This is 2 halves. Remember, 2 over 2 is 1. We have 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves, 6 halves. Again, notice 6 divided by 2 is 3. And then 7 halves. And likewise on the left with the negatives. Negative 3 1/2 is simply negative 7 1/2. You are simply going 7 halves. 1 half, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves, 6 halves, 7 halves. So negative 3 1/2 is the same as 7 halves. 3 1/2 is equivalent to 7 halves, and negative 3 1/2 is equivalent to negative 7 halves. A general note: 3 1/2 represents 3 plus a half. Negative 3 1/2 is negative 3 plus negative a half, or negative 3 minus a half. The fraction is also negative. This is a negative number, a negative whole number, and a negative fraction. If you want to know why, think of it this way. Negative 3 1/2 is the same as saying negative 1 times 3 1/2. Well, 3 1/2 is 3 plus a half, and you have this negative 1 multiplied times the entire mixed number, so you have to distribute it. And you get negative 3 plus negative a half, or negative 3 minus a half. What's important is to know this relationship. 3 1/2 is equivalent to 3 plus a half, and negative 3 1/2 is equivalent to negative 3 minus a half. You need to know this. To write a mixed number as an improper fraction, you start by multiplying the denominator of the fraction times the whole number, and then add the numerator of the fraction to this product. Write this number, whatever you get here, as the numerator of your new fraction, and keep the original denominator. A quick note: while you're doing this, ignore the sign when you're doing your calculations. A positive mixed number will be a positive fraction, and a negative mixed number will be a negative fraction. The negatives do not impact any of your calculations. So, if we have 7 2/3, and we want to write it as an improper fraction, we take the denominator times the whole number, which is 21, and then we add the numerator. Notice how I did not put an equal sign here. A lot of you misuse equal signs. Had there been an equal sign here, that would be incorrect because I would be saying that 21 is equal to 21 plus 2, which makes no sense whatsoever. I put an arrow to indicate I was using the 21 in some new way, namely to add 2. And then take this result, the 23, and write it over the same denominator. So that is 3 times 7 plus 2, and that's the same denominator. So 7 2/3 is equivalent to 23 over 3. I personally like to organize my work in a little neater fashion, namely like this. Here was my mixed number, and then I just write my calculations in the numerator, 3 times 7 plus 2, and then I do that. Eventually, and hopefully, you will be able to do this arithmetic in your head, and you will not need to show steps for this. You simply need to be able to find improper fractions. You don't need to show me how you found them. And again, notice it's the same denominator all the way through. Some of you might be wondering why this works. Well, recall that that mixed number is just an addition. So 7 2/3 is really just 7 plus 2/3. To add a whole number plus a fraction, we need a common denominator. 7 is 7 over 1. Our common denominator will be 3, so I multiply both 7 and 1 by 3. I get 21 over 3 plus 2/3, and now I just add my numerators and get 23 over 3. Basically, what we're doing is shortcutting this process. We know 7 has a denominator of 1, therefore the common denominator will be the denominator that is already there. And then you can just take that times the whole number and add it to the numerator. So we're just shortcutting this process. Let's write negative 4 1/5 as an improper fraction. Notice this negative is just going to be in front of the fraction the entire while and isn't actually going to impact any of our calculations. It's just a negative, and then you still do 5 times 4 plus 1. It's 21. The negative does not make the 4 negative, it doesn't make the 1 negative, it just makes the fraction, your end result, negative. Again, if you want to understand why, remember negative 4 1/5 is just negative 4 plus negative 1/5. 4 over 1 minus 1/5, because when you add a negative you're just subtracting, common denominator. Then you have a subtraction, well you have two negatives going on here, so then you just add them. And it stays negative. To write an improper fraction as a mixed number, so to go the other direction, you divide the numerator by the denominator, and the quotient, that's the result on top, is the whole number part of your mixed number, and the remainder is the numerator of the fraction part. The denominator again stays the same. So to write 17 over 5 as an equivalent mixed number in simplest form, we're just going to divide 17 by 5. 5 goes into 17 3 times, we have a remainder of 2. So the whole number part is 3, that's going to be our whole number, and the remainder is 2, that will be our numerator. So 17/5 is 3 2/5. Notice that the denominator stayed the same. Another way to think about it is 17/5 is the equivalent of 5/5 plus 5/5 plus 5/5. 5, 10, 15 plus 2 is 17. Each of these represents one whole, and that total leaves you 3 2/5, or 3 wholes plus 2/5, which is 3 2/5. So 17/5 is 3 2/5. Let's write negative 26/4 as an equivalent mixed number in simplest form. Some of you may realize right away that you can simplify 26 over 4. If you want to simplify first and work with 13/2, that's perfectly fine. It's up to you when you simplify. You can either do it in the beginning or at the end. I will demonstrate it at the end. We're going to divide 26 by 4. 4 goes into 26 6 times with a remainder of 2. So our whole number part is 6. The remainder, which will become our numerator, is 2. So negative 26 over 4 is equivalent to negative 6 and 2/4. 6 was our whole number, 2 is our remainder. Notice how it was a negative, so it just stayed negative. It didn't impact our division. Now, 2/4 can be simplified. So negative 6 and 2/4 is negative 6. 2 is 2, 4 is 2 times 2. One set of 2's cancels, and you're left with negative 6 1/2. Be careful, when you are simplifying, you have no impact on the whole number. The whole number is separate from the fraction. We can't simplify whole numbers, we only simplify fractions. So if you wanted to think of this as dividing top and bottom by 2, that's fine, but you leave that whole number alone. The answer in simplified form is negative 6 1/2.